Okay, so the first thing that people assume about me is that I'm no fan of the radical left, and that's absolutely true. I am no fan of the radical left. And that's primarily because, there's a variety of reasons, but it's primarily because I believe that the radical left errs in insisting at every possible opportunity that the proper defining characteristic of each individual is their group membership. I think that you do have a group membership. In fact, you have a whole plethora of them, which makes things quite complicated, as the intersectionalists have already figured out. But whenever someone brings a primary orientation to the world that is group-centered rather than individual-centered, I think they've already made a catastrophic mistake. And so I don't approve of the collectivists. Now, I don't approve of left-wing collectivists, and I don't approve of right-wing collectivists. But the right-wing collectivists haven't overrun the universities, and the left-wing collectivists have. So that's a distinct difference. Now, the left-wing collectivists enjoy acquiring a certain linguistic hegemony because they know that that's part of the way they can win the battle, and that's what they were trying to do when they passed compelled speech legislation in Canada, as far as I was concerned. So I made a video saying, I'm not going to abide by that because I'm not using the reprehensible linguistic maneuvers of collectivists who I detest. So, now, when I did that, you see, it was a very strange thing for a Canadian to do, because Canadians don't do that, partly because Canada works just fine. And so nobody comes up and says, waves the flag saying, look, we're wandering off a dangerous cliff here. And so then if someone does stand up and say that, then the first thing that all the other Canadians think and should think is that there's something wrong with that person. And that would be me. So then the question would be, well, what variety of things could be wrong with Dr. Peterson? That's a very long list, but the ones that might come...
That's actually a better subtitle than that.
Yeah,
terrific title.
Yeah. So what happened was, I objected to the radical left, that was my perspective, but the people who objected to me, or who were even critical of me, or curious about me, thought, okay, well, if Peterson isn't part of the left, then where the hell is he? And the answer could be, well, anywhere on the political spectrum, including Nazi. And of course, that's hypothetically true. And if I was a Nazi, then that would be really useful for all the radical leftists, because if you're a Nazi, as Douglas has already pointed out, we've already decided that you're a bad person. And if I was a bad person, then no one would have to listen to me. And so it was in the interests of the radicals whose positions I was disputing to cast me as a Nazi. But it was also a reasonable cognitive maneuver, because there was some possibility, although it's infinitesimal given the tiny proportion of actual Nazis in our society, that I would in fact be one and have gotten away with hiding that at 2 major universities for 25 years. And also, at that point, I had 250 hours of my lectures on YouTube, which was basically every word, in essence, that I ever uttered to a student since 1993, and a huge part of that actually consisted of very trenchant criticisms of Nazis. So it was difficult to pin that on me. But to give my critics credit, they had their reason for vilifying me. And the reason was, if you object, you might be a villain. Okay, so that's steel man number one. I'm not at least the kind of villain they think I am, although I might be some other kind of villain altogether.